hopeless state. Chad, would you take over there? My voice is not doing it.
Of mind and body. To show other alcoholics precisely how we have recovered is the main purpose of this book. For them, we hope these pages will prove so convincing, no further authentication will be necessary. We think this account of our experiences will help everyone to better understand the alcoholic. Many do not comprehend that the alcoholic is a very sick person, and besides, we are sure that our way of living has its advantages for all. That was Charlie. He's an alcoholic, and I'm Chad. I'm an alcoholic.
Thanks, Chad. Give them some online etiquette.
Please keep your audio turned off unless you're speaking to the whole group so we can cut down on background noise. When sharing or making an announcement, we ask that you turn on your video so we can see your beautiful face. However, it's not a requirement. If you feel uncomfortable showing your face online, we will still allow you to share. The recording feature has been turned off to honor our principle of anonymity. Welcome everybody to the online version of the regular Wednesday night open big book study meeting of the primary purpose group of Alcoholics Anonymous. This is an open meeting, and as such, all who have an interest in alcoholism and our program of recovery are welcome. Because this is an open meeting, you don't have to identify yourself nor your reason for being here if you don't wish to do so. Your anonymity will be protected. We ask that you protect ours. While this is an open meeting, membership in AA is limited to those who have a serious drinking problem and have a desire to stop drinking for good. All right, our seventh tradition states that each group ought to be fully self-supporting through their own contributions. If this is your first meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous, we ask that you be our guest. We're glad you're here and hope you come back and become a part of our lives. On the other hand, if this is a regular meeting for you and you can handle a couple of bucks, it really helps out. As it says, as we only meet once a week, that's not true anymore. Now we meet twice a week. Donations through Venmo, and Ashley's got the information on the screen. Hit the menu button on the top left, select search people, and we are primary purpose at Group Austin. The at Group Austin is the important part. Okay. Announcements. We do a weekly email. We send that out. If you'd like to get on that email list, go to austinppg.org, austinppg.org, and Ashley will put that in the chat. And click on that webmaster link and send an email, and we'll get you on the list. If for some reason you've already done that a couple of times and it still hadn't worked, we only send once a week. They usually come on Monday or Tuesday. But if you're still not getting them after a couple of weeks, send me an email to my email address here on the screen. There's also a link to that on the website, and I'll forward it over to Matt and make sure you get on the list. For the home group members, the locals, next Tuesday we're having a group conscience on. No, we're not next Tuesday. It is on a Tuesday, but it's October the 13th. October the 13th, we're having a group conscience meeting, and we got some positions up for election. We'll keep announcing that and have more details as it gets closer. Before I do the foundation meeting, Ashley, do we have any more announcements?
Nope, I think that's it.
Okay. We have a foundation meeting on the website. Well, let me just read it here. On the website, austinppg.org, we have a recording of the foundation meeting. If you're new to AA or our group and have not attended this meeting, we highly encourage you to check it out. It's a great introduction to what Alcoholics Anonymous and our group is all about. Freedom from alcoholism through the application and practice of the 12 steps as they were given us. I can't recommend that more to anybody that hadn't heard it yet. It's a great little talk especially it's designed for people that are just coming into AA, but it's also really good for people who may have been longtime members of AA. There may be some more available there. It's sure a lot of stuff that I didn't know after I had been in AA for a few years. Okay. Somebody tonight, let's see, how many do we have on here so far? Wow, 352. Out of 352 people, I bet somebody's looking for a sponsor. If you came here tonight without a sponsor, there's no reason to leave without a sponsor. It doesn't cost a dime, and it's a really important part of what we do to stay sober. If there's anyone tonight looking for a sponsor, reach out to me by email. Use this email address, not not in the chat because I might miss it in the chat, but if you'll send an email, I'll see it tomorrow, and we'll get you hooked up with somebody. And there's also a link to that on the website, austinppg.org. And that's not just for brand new people. We've been setting some people up that have come over to this meeting and kind of see that maybe they've never really been through the steps straight out of the big book, and they're really interested in doing that. Or maybe if you're out there and you've been a member of AA for a while and you don't feel like you're getting what some people are describing around here, well, send me an email. We'll either get you hooked up with a sponsor or get somebody to take you through the steps. You don't even have to give up your current sponsor. You can just go through the steps with somebody and keep who you have. Okay. Uh-oh. Tradition 5, 4, 5, 6. Like I said, tradition 6. Steve's going to read tradition 6 before we start the study. And this is on page 562 in the 4th edition. He's going to read the short form and the long form. We need to unmute him. There you go.
Awesome. Thanks, Chad. My name is Steve and I'm an alcoholic. And our 6th tradition states that an AA group ought never endorse, finance, or lend the AA name to any related facility or outside enterprise, lest problems of money, property, and prestige divert us from our primary purpose. And our AA experience has taught us that problems of money, property, and authority may easily divert us from our primary spiritual aim. We think, therefore, that any considerable property of genuine use to AA should be separately incorporated and managed, thus dividing the material from the spiritual. An AA group as such should never go into business. Secondary aids to AA, such as clubs or hospitals, which require much property or administration, ought to be incorporated and so set apart that, if necessary, they can be freely discarded by the groups. Hence, such facilities ought not to use the AA name. Their management should be the sole responsibility of those people who financially support them. For clubs, AA managers are usually preferred, but hospitals, as well as other places of recuperation, ought to be well outside AA and medically supervised. While an AA group may cooperate with anyone, such cooperation ought never go so far as affiliation or endorsement, actual or implied. An AA group can bind itself to no one. Thanks.
Good job, Steve.
Thank you.
Kind of selfish there, Steve. I thought you were going to take up the whole meeting.
Yeah, I have a lot to read.
It says here, in the spirit of the 12 traditions, our group conscience, you did a great job. In the spirit of the 12 traditions, our group conscience has elected to use a big book study guide to help us stay focused on our study of the AA Big Book. And if you're interested in getting a hold of one of those, Ashley's got the information on it in the chat. There are one or more questions for darn near every sentence in the basic text. The chairperson will read a question. Probably Charlie will read a question, and then I'll read the related sentence. It's okay to comment more than once in here, but please stay focused on the text at hand. Rather than share our experience with the reading, we try to share on what our founders are saying, what it means, and why they're saying it now. So what that means is in most AA meetings you go to, almost all AA meetings you go to, what we're asking you to do is share your experience with the reading, your experience with the steps, your experience with the topic. But at this meeting, we do things a little different. We're a true big book study. We're here to discuss the book, and we try to keep our experience out of it as much as possible. If comments get too general or begin to drift off track, it's the responsibility of the chairperson to redirect the discussion. So here's how to share. After we call them, or after we do the reading, answer the questions, if you'd like to share on what we've read, select participants at the bottom of your screen, select more, and then select raise your hand. You'll have a little blue hand go up on your screen. And then we'll call on you, and please be patient. There's going to be a lot of activity on this tonight. We'll try to get to everybody. Last thing, we've got a 1936 Webster's Dictionary. I've got one. I think Charlie has one. I know Ashley has one. So if you want to know what a word means, or even better yet, what it meant when they were writing the big book, put it in the chat to one of us and we'll look it up. Your best bet's probably going to be with Ashley. Okay, tonight. Charlie, you want to tell them where we're starting?
Sure, thanks, Chad. Appreciate you voicing that. I, just an update on my voice. They told I got to have another surgery, and they told me I had to lose 30 pounds before I had it. And I was like, my God, that could be years. But I've turned it around, and so I'm halfway there. So one of these days, I hope to be hitting the high notes again. Gosh, Chad, do you think we should consider doing half the paragraph?
I think we can do a whole paragraph.
Wow, this is a power-packed one. We're going in a super power-packed page of doctor's opinion. This is the page that, in my opinion, if you're delivering a first-step experience to somebody, this is a pivotal and powerful key page that we get a lot of information from. We're on the last paragraph, and it's kind of funny. He's been talking about the altruistic movement and that sort of thing, and then he switches over to describing the disease again. And we're going to start off with men and women drink, and we're going to read over to recovery. Go ahead, Chad.
Men and women drink essentially because they like the effect produced by alcohol. The sensation is so elusive that while they admit it is injurious, they cannot, after a time, differentiate the true from the false. To them, their alcoholic life seems the only normal one. They are restless, irritable, and discontented, unless they can again experience the sense of ease and comfort which comes at once by taking a few drinks which they see others taking with impunity. After they have succumbed to the desire again, as so many do, and the phenomenon of craving develops, they pass through the well-known stages of a spree, emerging remorseful with a firm resolution not to drink again. This is repeated over and over, and unless this person can experience an entire psychic change, there is very little hope of his recovery.
Why do men and women drink?
Men and women drink essentially because they like the effect produced by alcohol.
Does the alcoholic understand why he drinks? Posit that.
The sensation is so elusive that...
Does drinking cause problems or injuries, as Silkworth terms them? Stop it, injurious.
While they admit it is injurious,
what's the real problem with the alcoholic?
They cannot, after a time, differentiate the true from the false.
So there's a nice comment here. We call them cliff notes. It says, this is a rather unusual way of saying we can never again rely on our mind to keep us from starting to drink. What is normal to the alcoholic?
To them, their alcoholic life seems the only normal one.
In fact, we think that those who don't drink the way we do must have something wrong with them. In the absence of a few drinks, what does the alcoholic feel? Read 6 words.
They are restless, irritable, and discontented.
What can they experience from taking a few drinks?
Unless they can again experience the sense of ease and comfort which comes at once by taking a few drinks.
What effect do alcoholics see others experience when they drink?
Drinks which they see others taking with impunity.
Ashley, would you get us impunity? What happens after the alcoholic succumbs to that desire for a few drinks?
After they have succumbed to the desire again, as so many do, and the phenomenon of craving develops, they pass...
What's the result of the first few drinks?
They pass through the well-known stages of a spree.
Oh, hold on, man, this is a 4-parter. How does the alcoholic feel afterwards? 2 words.
Emerging remorseful.
What is the national anthem of every alcoholic?
With a firm resolution not to drink again.
Put your hand over your heart when you say that. How well does the alcoholic manage the resolutions to never take another drink? Second over.
This is repeated over and over.
To be successful in sobriety, what must the alcoholic experience?
And unless this person can experience an entire psychic change, there is very little hope of his recovery.
And there's a long cliff note here in the study guide that says, This is the lethal aspect of alcoholism. Our inability to manage our most sincere desire to never take another drink. Until we can accept this truth in our heart of hearts, our chances of living sober are out of reach. This is the second half of step one, the unmanageability. As chronic alcoholics, we're powerless over our body, powerless over our mind, where alcohol is concerned. Whatever else we may be powerless over has nothing to do with our requirement for membership in Alcoholics Anonymous. Okay, boy, I know there's going to be some comments about this one.
Let's kick it off with Myers.
That'd be wonderful.
I was 100% not going to say anything tonight, and I was just going to listen. But this paragraph, if there was a common thread that runs through every drunk I've ever known, including me, it's this paragraph. It says it in such a way. My favorite, maybe one of my very favorite lines in the entire big book is this last little piece of that paragraph that we just read. And unless this person can experience 90 meetings in 90 days, there's very little hope of his recovery. Oh, wait a minute. It didn't say that, did it? It said an entire psychic change, which begs for you to ask the next question: have I had an entire psychic change? If you have, rock on. If you haven't, rock on. Let's go get one. It's there waiting. But they didn't play around with it. I love the fact they paint a picture and then they tell you what the solution is, but there's no vague, weird cafeteria style stuff there. It's just real. A psychic change is going to be necessary. That's all I got.
Good
Thank you, Myers.
Okay, I have impunity before we go to the next. So the definition of impunity is without punishment, exempt, or freedom from punishment, harm, or loss.
Cool. That's pretty straightforward. Oh, and can you do injurious?
Yep.
All right, Chip.
Hey, hi, I'm Chip. I'm an alcoholic.
Hi, Chip.
Hey, this is to one of the ways I understand this is really key because why do I drink? Because I like the effect produced by alcohol, and it's so elusive. But what's going on? And what is the effect produced by drinking alcohol? You know, the big book talks about we're not crusaders. We don't go and we're not trying to eliminate alcohol. I don't have a problem with alcohol. What I have is a problem with what the disease of alcoholism does when I drink it. And so what's that effect produced when I drink it? It's to me, it's a relationship with the mystical lie, that with nothing. So it's I, self, me, I'm turned on myself. And all of a sudden, and it's giving me guidance and direction. It's playing higher power. That's what it's doing. All of a sudden, I got a relationship with a higher power that I think I can trust, rely, and depend on. I can be anything on that stuff. Because it's playing God, it's telling me who and what I am. But it has, since nothing knows nothing but itself, a bunch of lies. It has no guidance and direction. So its guidance and direction is like, I know. All of a sudden, I know what I am. I am the best dancer in the world. If I'm not, it doesn't matter. I don't care. Or I'm the coolest, slickest guy around. And at first it appears to work because, you know, we can become children of God, can be completely out of their minds. And as long as we don't wreck cars and kill people and stuff like that, it's a lot of fun at first. But as we get more dependent on the lie to tell us who and what we are, it starts stealing our values slowly because it has these two things that are crazy and dangerous and hurtful. And then we can't tell the truth from the false, and we think it's okay to run out in front of cars and break laws and hurt people, and we're in full flight from reality. We don't know what the truth is, and we're dependent on the lie to tell us who and what we are, and it appears to work at first, but as we get further and further away from it, all hell breaks loose. It doesn't work, and it's so elusive. It's like, man, but I need to, because it shoots my secret spot, and it tells me who and what I am, and I'm nobody without it. You know, it's because it's playing with the spiritual realm. It's the spiritual melody. It's telling us who and what we are, and it's giving the obsession is the disease to guide direct, giving us guidance direction right into the drink. You know, pretty much. It tells us who we're alcoholics. We know what we do. We drink. You know. That's why it's very important to identify as a recovering alcoholic and start doing what recovering alcoholics do, because we let the disease tell us who and what we are still. And that's why the psychic change is I have to switch higher powers. I have to quit believing the freaking disease, quit letting it tell me who and what I am, and ask God who and what I am and what I should be doing, because the disease doesn't know, and we don't know until we get connected to God, because He's the only authority around that really knows anything. And so it's very important that we, to realize that we're up against something it's way too much for us. Without help, we can't think our way out of this. We can't do anything except surrender to what is. But anyway, thanks for sharing.
This one, Jeff.
All right. Okay, Charlie, let me call on Lil and then you're next.
Oh, I'm flattered. Hi, everybody. My name is Lil. I'm an alcoholic. I love this meeting. And I love this powerful part of the book. So far what's been said, and the sensation is we drink essentially, they like the effect. For some of us, as soon as it touched our systems, we experienced the effect of alcohol. And I know it's mystical, magical, and absolutely everything changed like that for some of us. That's how it was for me, immediately. I didn't get drunk. It changed the world I was in and how I saw the world. It was just a remarkable thing. And the line about we cannot differentiate the true from the false, that is as much the truth today as it was when I started drinking at 12. And I can't tell. That's why I need a sponsor. I cannot tell what is true and what is a lie. That's part of being an alcoholic. That's just the nature of alcoholism. Just like nature of alcoholism without alcohol is being irritable, restless, and discontent. Because alcohol is the solution to that problem. You pour alcohol on that, and all of a sudden, sense of ease and comfort. Suddenly, you can breathe. Suddenly, as my sponsor would say, you can come out and play. Suddenly, the world looks different. Suddenly, it's a friendly place as opposed to frightening and dangerous. And this thing, what is it? And this paragraph, what takes us to the drink? What takes us back to the first drink? What is that, right? It's our mind. Because we can't differentiate the true from the false. And our alcoholic lives are the only normal one. It's like when I drink, this is how I should feel all the time. Unfortunately, it's the wrong solution. The true solution is having an entire psychic change, as Mike has already mentioned, so that I don't go back to the drink. Instead, I go back to my spiritual program. And from that, I get ease and comfort instead of being irritable, restless, and discontent. Because that's a natural resting place for an alcoholic without alcohol. Alcohol is the solution. That's the problem. That's all I've got. Thanks for asking me to share.
Good stuff. Thank you. Charlie?
Thank you, Chad. Oh my gosh, there's just so much here. It's funny, he describes us, and then, but he describes the disease and he starts talking about us. But when he says, after a time, I can't differentiate the truth from the false, there's so many examples of that. But, one of the ways I can't tell the truth from the false is I'm sitting in my 7th detox center thinking I'm fixing to get, this is international now, thinking I'm about to get a handle on this thing. Everybody doesn't say fixing. It means preparing to. It doesn't mean repairing. But I sit in my 7th detox center thinking, I know if I ever get as lame as these guys, I might try your stupid little 12-step thing. But when I get out of here, if you gave every one of us the flag to wave when we get to AA, everybody's flag would say the same thing. It would say, you don't understand, my case is different. You don't understand, my case is different. And so I can't tell the truth from the false. And I love the one about our alcoholic life seems like the only normal one. Because by the time I get here, today looks like yesterday, yesterday looks like last week, and it feels like I'm just doing whatever I have to do to get by. One of my favorite examples of that our alcoholic life, it seems like the only normal. We get so used to our lifestyle. I've been saying this one lately, but it's one of my favorites. One of my favorite examples of how alcohol. Did you know that most people are born, live their entire lives, and die without ever being arrested? I know. I mean, it's like, what? I mean, but to us, it's like, oh, who's your probation officer? I mean, it's like it's part of doing business. But then it switches over to the really lethal piece about that I'm restless, irritable, and discontented. And that's without a drinking. And my mother would say, you need to stop drinking. She didn't understand two things. She didn't understand what it does for me, and she didn't understand what it was like when I don't have it. Because it seems like if you just stop drinking, he's a good boy. But when I stop drinking, I don't get okay. I get restless. I get jumpy. I get irritable. I mean, I don't think I get irritable. People just irritate me. That's different from being irritable, and then the whole thing. But I mean, the thing we talked about in that impunity with Ashley is when I get uncomfortable enough and I see other people having a couple of drinks and it doesn't cost them their job and their car and their wife and all the values they grew up with and their savings account, and I'm going, they just get to have a couple of drinks with impunity, meaning they don't get punished for it. And when I get uncomfortable enough, I start wanting to know, where's mine? How come this Nimrod gets one and I don't? So it all adds up to eventually developing the mental obsession, and then it rolls right into it where it says, after they have succumbed to the desire again, as so many do, what happens when I succumb to the desire? I trigger the physical reaction, the phenomenon of craving. So I drink until I have to stop, and then I stop until I have to drink. And I drink until I have to stop, and I stop until I have to drink. That's the terrible cycle of alcoholism. And when he says, it's one of the first places they mention the psychic experience, it says, experiencing an entire psychic change. This is Silkworth saying that. There's very little hope of it recovery. And right under that in my book, I've referenced page 43 in our book, Percy, when it says a well-known, it says on 43, down in the second new paragraph, this was Dr. Percy Pollock from Bellevue Hospital. And he's saying what you say about the hopelessness of alcoholic is correct. And he talks about Bill and Hank coming there and they were hopeless apart from divine help. He wouldn't have taken them as patients. They're too heartbreaking. Now here's my favorite part. He says, though not a religious person, I have profound respect for the spiritual approach in such cases as yours. You know what he's saying there? This is a medical doctor saying, look, guys, me, I don't believe in God, but you might want to try it, It's like, it's the only thing he's seen work for us. So, I don't know. Thanks for calling on me.
Thanks. I got a few definitions. I'll go ahead and jump in. All right. So first, normal. Had people want to know normal. This one was great. There's a lot of definitions, but free from mental disorder, not insane, not neurotic.
Wow.
One of the definitions for normal. Psychic is not physical, lying outside of the realm of the known physical process. And injurious is inflicting or tending to inflict injury, detrimental, slanderous, and abusive.
Wow, those are good ones. To follow up on what Charlie was saying there, I'm going to try this and see if you can see. This is a visual for this cycle. How's that look, Ashley? Can you see that?
Go a little bit closer and then.
Okay, how's that?
Yep.
Okay, so if we started here with the first drink, and then that sets off the craving, we suffer the consequences, we become remorseful, we have a firm resolution to stop. So now we're sober, and we're supposed to get better when we're sober. I mean, that's what everybody told me. If you just stop drinking, everything will be better. But what happens is I start to RID, that's a little acronym. I start to get restless, irritable, discontented. That obsession kicks back in, and it leads back to that first drink, and that's that cycle. And of course, guys, no, this is just because I show this in this meeting that's a big book study doesn't mean that this is in the big book. It's just a kind of a visual representation that some of us use on to kind of demonstrate what this is saying. And we even used it when we did this the foundation meeting that you can hear on the website. Someone drew this up on a whiteboard so we can kind of point at it. So it's just kind of a suggestion. If anybody's interested, send me an email or something. I'll take a little photograph of it and send it back to you. But it can be kind of helpful talking in treatment centers and things like that. Other thing I wanted to say, and this is just kind of for fun to throw out there are funny little controversies in AA. And one of they're usually the really funny ones to me are the ones that the big book thumpers have amongst each other. And this is one of them that's one of them you'll hear a lot is recovered versus recovering, but you don't really hear a lot of big book thumpers say we're recovering. We're all about we're recovered, because that's what the book says. But here's a funny one that big book thumpers kind of go against each other with. Is this a twofold illness or a threefold illness? And you'll hear that one a lot. And it's really entertaining. I mean, if that's what we're arguing about, we're probably doing pretty good. But what they're talking about there is the aspects of alcoholism. One, of course, is the physical. The physical, that's this craving that we develop once we start to drink. The other one is the mental aspect. That's my inability to not take the first drink. That's that powerlessness. Not only am I powerless over the alcohol once I put it in my body, but I'm also powerless over that first drink. And then the other aspect, the one that's a little controversial, is this spiritual aspect. And the spiritual aspect, this is what the spiritual malady, the book refers to it as a spiritual malady when you get way up into the chapter how it works. But a lot of people use this to refer to this spiritual malady. And what this is saying here is that when the alcoholic is sober, we don't just get all better. We're not just, I'm okay now. I'm restless, irritable, and discontented. That's one way of describing it. And there are other places in the book that people use to refer to that spiritual malady. But here's what I can tell you. And I'm not on either side of this, but I can tell you this. Lots of people have a spiritual malady. Lots of people are restless, irritable, and discontented, and then they take a drink, and then they feel better. That's not what makes a person alcoholic. What makes a person alcoholic is the combination of this physical allergy or this craving that develops once I start to drink, combined with an inability to stop drinking altogether. The physical and mental, when you put those together, that makes an alcoholic. Now, every alcoholic that I know also has this spiritual malady, but lots of other people do. So whether you want to call it a twofold or threefold, rock on, I think it's awesome. But anyway, we got some good people here in line, so I want to get to them. All right, Lynn.
Good evening. My name is Lynn, and I'm an alcoholic. Fabulous meeting. I wish my only problem would have been that I was restless, irritable, and discontented. And it's good to remember that those things were happening inside of me. But the bedevilment at page 52 tells me that there was plenty other things brewing inside of me. I was having trouble with my personal relationships inside, not control my emotional nature inside. I was a prey to misery and depression inside. I had a feeling of uselessness inside. I was full of fear inside. I was unhappy inside, and I couldn't seem to be of real help to other people inside. I'm getting out of bed, and I have all this stuff brewing inside of me. So of course, it's a matter of time when I'm gonna have to take that drink for some ease and comfort. And that tells me also that my problem was not religion, was not my childhood, was not my boyfriend or the neighbors. My problems were inside of me. Thank you so much for letting me share.
Thanks, Lynn. Good stuff. All right. Well, let's call on Ray.
All right, I'm Ray Shepard. I'm a recovered alcoholic. You know, I look in my dictionary, I look up the word normal, and I got a picture of Charlie there.
Hardly.
This paragraph, yeah, I agree, Chad. This paragraph, as we take a look at how this chapter is outlined and how it is incorporated into the rest of the book, really ties together step 1 and step 2. Step 1 is our problem with drinking. Step 2 is our problem with our thinking. And here in this particular paragraph, what he's doing is he's actually addressing both of these problems. If you go back to the paragraph at the top of the page, he talks about these things have become habit. And they become habit because it's the only normal way of living that we have. And we want to stop it. We have such an intense desire to stop, as it says on page 24, it doesn't matter. You can have the greatest amount of desire you want, but it's not going to change anything. In fact, we go to page 34 and it says, even though the necessity is great or the wish is there, we just can't stop. So as we're looking at how we're going to get out of what we're involved in, Silkworth points us toward the psychic change, or as Bill does, toward Appendix 2 when he calls it a personality change sufficient to overcome alcoholism. So all of these things, as we're looking at our recovery process, this particular part of Silkworth's chapter is expanded on by Bill as he writes the book, and he even expresses it great in his story on page 5 when he says, liquor ceased to become a luxury, it became a necessity. Nevertheless, I still thought I could control the situation. But things got worse. I tried hard and I came home drunk. I made a resolution, I came home drunk. And the process goes through over and over exactly how Silkworth describes it here. So there's a lot that we could do in terms of connecting all of this. But I think Bill does it best when we get to chapter 7, particularly on page 92, when he talks about the very problems that we have in dealing with another individual who may not know whether they're alcoholic or not, gives us these little ideas as to how we are to follow them. And he talks about them in different terms than what Silkworth presents here. But actually, you mentioned one thing about insanity. If you go to page 37, Bill describes insanity, and he says one thing. He said, I don't care how you define it. I don't care how the dictionaries define it. He said, insanity is this inability to think with proportion. I can't tell true from false. I don't know what's right from wrong. And he said, not only that, I can't think straight. There's that little niggling lie that I know so well that sounds good. And by God, in fact, it sounds so good, I'm going to try it. And he gives many examples then in chapter 3 about that. I love Jim with, I'm going to put whiskey in my milk. or Fred, I'm going to walk into the dining room and suddenly the thought comes to mind, a couple of cocktails would be, who in the hell knowing that they're going to be off and running would do that, except a real alcoholic? Thank you.
Thanks, Trey. Good stuff. All right. Next, we got Chris Schroeder.
Hi, everybody. My name's Chris. I'm an alcoholic. Charlie was right about this paragraph being a big paragraph. There is so much in this. When I was a kid, there was this show called Animal Kingdom, and there's this woman. I think her name was Jane Goodell, but she went to Africa and she lived with the gorillas for like 10 years, and she studied their behavior, and she would just try to come up with all these theories about what's going on with the interaction of the gorillas. And I think Dr. Silkworth was kind of doing this too in Towns Hospital, because he's a non-alcoholic, right? He's just watching the craziness of all what you did, and he came up with this beautiful theory, and it's boiled down in this paragraph. And another thing that really got me tonight was that there's three different people who kind of came up with the enormity of the solution that we're going to need to be faced with. Carl Jung said a religious conversion experience. And he told Roland Hazard that, or whatever. Then there was the two doctors. One of them said, apart from divine help. And Dr. Silkworth is saying, we're gonna completely have to rearrange the way we think, and that's how big the solution is going to be, and it's going to have to be worked for. So like the rest of the book is here's the best way we can describe of having this psychic change, having this spiritual awakening, and I'm incredibly grateful for these pioneers, these founders, for figuring this out. We wouldn't be sitting here on the Zoom if they didn't. That's all I got. Thanks.
Chris, I feel a little insulted. That's great. Tears wise. PJ.
Hey, sir. Thank you, you gorilla. Yeah, thank you. I'm PJ. I'm an alcoholic. I like the effect produced by alcohol. I'm a huge fan. I gotta admit, I'm a massive fan, and I often say that if I weren't an alcoholic, I would probably be drunk right now. I love this stuff, but the cannot after a time differentiate the truth from the false. To me, this sounds so much like the second half of the first step, right? That my life is unmanageable. When I came in here convincing me that I was powerless over alcohol, it felt like it was kicking my ass, right? So all said and done, the first half of the first step was not that big of a challenge. But convincing me that my will was no longer going to do me any good and was absolutely a detriment to me and a liability when it came to my recovery was something that I could not. That was the thing that I struggled with the absolute most in this program, right? I'm a dyed-in-the-wool agnostic. And when I got to step 2 and it said, came to believe, and I went, whoa, hold on, wait a minute. I thought I had this drinking problem and my life was all screwed up, and now you're saying I've got to believe in this power greater than myself, and I'm, dog paddling as fast as I can to keep this thing afloat, right? And what it took me a while to really understand was the nature that I was in when I got to the program, and even the nature that I was in a few months into sobriety when things weren't affecting me like they seemed like they were affecting you, right? People around me were happy, and that's the beauty of the fellowship, is to watch this thing work for some other people. But I didn't necessarily feel it was happening to me because, man, I thought I was going to stand around and this thing was just going to happen to me, right? Because I still thought somehow that I could think my way out of this thing and that I could think my way through this deal and that I was going to do this sobriety the way that I thought I was going to do it, right? And when I get to that, it was that part of being convinced, and it was because I couldn't differentiate the truth from the false, right? I could tell you that I had great intentions. I could tell you that I really thought I had learned from a lot of those past experiences, so I was never going to do those things again. And I believed that to be the case. And so I thought somehow that I was bringing something to the table with me when all I was really bringing was misery. And so when I go to that last piece and we look at, unless this person can have an entire psychic change, what I still believe that to a large extent, that's the basis of everything that I should judge my program by. Because when I got here, I love what Lynn said, right? I was filled with the bedevilments from beginning to end, right? I was completely lost. I was angry. I was miserable. I was alone. I was totally and utterly alone. I hated my life and I hated everybody that was in my life, right? And I was dishonest as all hell and all of these different things, right? I was still trying to control the way that the situation went on. And so when I go through this program, when I get to a situation and I act like I did when I got here, I know that I haven't had an entire psychic change and I've got work to do, right? It's like, oh, wow, I've tried to take control again. Oh, once again, I've tried to manage my own life and I've tried to manage my way through this. Once again, I've not relied on God's will and I'm doing this thing solo. And every time I fly solo, I fly this thing into the ground, right? That is the basis that I use to look at and judge what am I doing in a particular situation, right? If I'm thinking too much about this, I probably haven't hit my knees and asked God for help through this particular issue. And that's the entire psychic change that I needed, right? And when I had that entire psychic change that was brought about by, a power greater than myself as the result of these steps, right? Suddenly I was in tight situations where I thought, I'm going to get through these things. And before the slightest situations, I was totally screwed. When I got here, nothing was going to turn out better than it was, right now, right? Everything was going to get worse, because I was relying on everything that I knew. And after I had that spiritual experience, I realized that I've carried around a power with me that could, help me that would solve these problems for me, right? And so that's that entire psychic change. I still think it's the basis for, am I doing it differently than I would have when I got here, right? Am I thinking about it differently? If I'm pissed off at you, I'm probably not really experiencing an entire psychic change. I'm probably acting like I did and trying to control the situation when I got here. I love it. I really love what a lot of folks have said tonight. It's been a phenomenal meeting. So thanks for letting me share and appreciate it, Chad and Charlie.
It has been phenomenal. Anybody in there, anybody out here, you think it feels like you're in a workshop? Well, you are. Most of the people who have shared tonight in this meeting travel all over the country and the world doing big book workshops. This has really been amazing. Raquel, you're up. Let me try again. There we go.
Thank you. Thank you. Oh, thank God that you made that disclaimer about everybody who spoke before me went all over the world to talk about the book. That has not been my case. Anyways, I want to actually just touch upon the fact that for me, it has been a fantastic meeting. It does really feel like when you go diving, there's so many levels to it. And this book is so amazing that I never cease to be in awe for what I read. But today the thing that got to me was the sensation that is so elusive, like a ghost, the one that I can never actually catch. And I'm just constantly, I need to breathe again. That thing, like, I need to be able to breathe again, and I cannot do it. And it's just like the whole hopelessness of all these paragraphs that I succumb again, and then it's over and over again. And this is how I'm going to end up. And just the whole thing of understanding, like you all said, at least we all have that particular paragraph in common. But the thing that I loved the most was what Meyer said in the end, like, have I had an entire psychic change, And those are the questions that sometimes make me reflect more and more about my present program, Okay, how can I enlarge this that I have today? So my question, actually, for once, I think I'm gonna just put a question there, like, is there kind of like a limit of the psychic change? And search for more and that psychic changes, like more recovery, more of God, more of growth. Thank
you. Raquel, be careful. You may be doing some workshops in the future. Next up is, oh, good, Ramona. There we go.
Thank you, Chad. Thank you, Raquel. That was great. I love that question. And I'm not one that has traveled everywhere. I've only been doing this a year and a half. And so this is like so awesome. I love it. every one of you guys have helped me so much. I love the thing truth, exchange the truth for false, you know, that we can't distinguish them. Whenever somebody asks me why I drank, I said because I'm prettier, smarter, and I can win Dancing with the Stars. Okay, so that's why I drank. I like that feeling. I like that elusiveness. But no matter how much I drank, Raquel's it is so elusive, I never could win Dancing with the Stars because, you know, after a little bit, I couldn't stand up. But I thought I was really cool, all messed up. But page 82 tells me I was not cool. It says the alcoholic is like a tornado roaring his way through the lives of others. Now, I believe I could have broken somebody's foot if I was actually dancing with them, or the table I was dancing on or something. But that's the truth. I drank so that I could get that feeling and be better, but I never was. It got me to a tornado, and I kept destroying that. And then the truth was, I was destroying more as I was trying to feel better. And that was the elusive part of me. And that part with impunity, man, that can cause a resentment, a big time resentment, and living in self-pity and all kinds of stuff. And then that goes right to that circle diagram that Chad drew. And but this whole paragraph to me is page 24 in the book, in how it works, because that whole part is the problem. And it says the great fact is, and it's all the italics in there. And this whole part is page 24. And I love that there's nothing in the big book that's not substantiated somewhere else. And for a teacher and a diagnostician and an educator, I like the fact that it's double dipped and it's going all the way across the book, because that lends validity, clarity, and no question. And I think somebody's already said that about no question. And I just cannot tell y'all how much I love this meeting and how much I love being here with all of you and doing all this learning. It's keeping this old brain sharp. Keep it up.
Thanks, Ramona. Good stuff. I apologize if somebody already did this, but this entire psychic change, it's also referred to as a spiritual awakening or a spiritual experience, and different things throughout the book. On page 27, Dr. Carl Jung describes it as, he says, the nature of huge emotional displacements and rearrangements, ideas, emotions, and attitudes which were once the guiding forces of the lives of these men are suddenly cast to one side, and a completely new set of conceptions and motives begin to dominate them. Chris.
Thank you. My name is Chris, and I'm a grateful recovered alcoholic. I've been sober a long time. I got sober out in Washington State, and I had the fortunate time to be able to travel around the state to give talks occasionally. A lot of fun. I attended a meeting one time in a little town called Brewster in Washington State, and then people had to come from 4 different towns to get 12 people in the meeting, okay? And half of them had a shoebox full of 30, 60, and 90-day coins. And I never really truly understood how that can happen over such a long period of time to the same person. Until about 3 months ago, I got a series of tapes from Charlie and Katie, and it opened up my eyes to a lot of things. And right here, I heard Charlie say that I stayed stopped until I couldn't stay stopped. And he said one time, he says, I stopped drinking twice once during the Dallas Cowboy football game, right? And he says, it's when I became stopped. And then this is what he changed what I'm going to do now into the personal. And he says, I became restless, irritable, and discontent. And unless I can again experience the sense of ease and comfort, which comes at once by taking a few drinks which only others can take with impunity. I began to think about that. That's absolutely true. I've listened to people in meetings who are there on paper. They said they can't wait for 90 days to get ready to pass so they can go out and get drunk. And when they start reading this, they say they, them, they go, that's good for them, but I'm unique. I'm different. I don't belong here. And I truly believe that once somebody takes a look at that and learns to change that to the first person rather than the third person, they begin to take a look at what is really going on with them. And it says, I have succumbed, and after I have succumbed to the desire again, as so many others do, and the phenomenon of craving develops, I pass through those well-known stages. I had to look at that and find out, how can I take those sentences that are written in the third person and give them to somebody else to wake them up and begin to realize that they are, in fact, their own worst enemy. And Charlie woke that up in me when that tape that I read, and it's phenomenal. I like it. I love it. And that's why I keep coming back to these meetings, particularly this one, to learn more stuff. I'll pass.
Glad you're here.
Chris. Charlie, it's 8:27.
Well, let's see what we have here. Gosh, what a power-packed, such a power-packed paragraph. I can't wait to keep rolling in this part of the book. Somebody pointed out the reading that we close with. I was reading As Bill Sees It one time, and I noticed that, in the front of As Bill Sees It, it says there have been some slight editing made to some of the things they quote for this purpose of clarity. And in there, I had said for years that they had added those 3 words for the newcomer, Chad, but I just noticed the other day that they also eliminated the line, our book is meant to be suggestive only. It goes right to, we realize we know only a little. God will constantly disclose more to you and to us. Ask him in your morning meditation what you can do each day for the man who is still sick. The answers will come if your own house is in order. But you obviously cannot transmit something you haven't got. See to it that your relationship with him is right, and great events will come to pass for you and for countless others. This is the great fact for us. For the newcomer, abandon yourself to God as you understand God. Admit your faults to him and your fellows. Clear away the wreckage of your past. Give freely of what you find and join us. We shall be with you in the fellowship of the Spirit, and you will surely meet some of us as you trudge the road of happy destiny. May God bless you and keep you until then. That's from page 331, As Bill Sees It. All over the place, being here, and it's just awesome to look at the lineup with it that we have available on this meeting. It's such a gift, and I'm so happy to get to be a part of it. I want to congratulate our celebrants. Anybody celebrating a chip this week, we want to celebrate, and welcome all of our visitors. We have a tradition here, closing with the 7-step prayer for anybody who'd like to join in. And I say this every week because I think it's funny. We open all the microphones and everybody talks at once. And I like to say it so we can remember what the mind of a newcomer sounds like. So we're all gonna do the 7-step prayer now.
Creator, may you should have all of me, that you now remove from me the effect of character, stands in the way of my usefulness to you and my fellows. Strength as I go off from here to do your bidding.
And you'll hear from you in the